Hi everyone, this is Syrian Girl. By now you may have heard that the Armenians stormed their parliament to protest the ceasefire that was signed with Azerbaijan. I conducted an interview with Armenian Syrian journalist Kevork Almassian last week and made the following predictions during that interview.
Because I think Russia is trying to make Armenia back down. Would you say that that's true? Will the Russians negotiate for the Azeris to pull back? Do you think they will pull back? Do you think that there will be a ceasefire with the new regions, like the new lines?
Everything is possible. Everything is possible in the current situation.
The ceasefire is very unpopular with the Armenian people, so this conflict is far from over. So, this interview is still very topical and important for those who want to understand the conflict. I also published a journal article about it that I will link below.
Hi everyone, this is Syrian Girl. I'm here with Kevork Almassian, founder of Syrian Analysis. He is a Syrian Armenian journalist and political analyst who's currently living in Germany, as far as I understand. And he's been writing articles about the current crisis in Nagorno-Karabakh. Forgive me if I pronounced it incorrectly. I'm sure you're going to correct me a lot with the pronunciation. Syria and Armenia also have a long history together. We will get into that. But first of all, please tell us a little bit about Armenia. Let's start there. Let's talk about the history of Armenia and how we got to this point.
First of all, thank you very much, Madam, for having me on your channel, and it's my pleasure. Actually, the history of the Armenians goes back to 5th century BC in the Southern Caucasus and in Eastern Anatolia. And in the 2nd century BC, there was a big Armenian kingdom under Dikran the Great, King Dikran the Great. And this kingdom stretched from the Caspian Sea till the Mediterranean, especially to Syria, Latakia, and Tartus, and also parts of Palestine to Haifa. So the Armenians are original residents of this region, and their presence is not only exclusive to the post Armenian genocide era, where the Armenians also took refuge in the Arabic, let's say, regions. So the Armenians were active until under many empires, the Romans, the Greeks, etc. Then they took part, especially in the military and the political administrations of kingdoms until the Ottoman Empire came. And in early 18th century, the Ottoman Empire occupied, especially the Armenian territories, especially the Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, Armenians call it Artsakh, area, and they put it under strict control of the Ottomans. Some historic documents claim that the Ottomans gave some sort of a self-autonomy for the Armenians, but the reality on the ground was Armenians lived under strict Ottoman rule, and Turkification was imposed on them, similar to the Arab people in the region.
Syria, same story.
Yes, so they lived similar experiences, but at the end of World War I, and with the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, Stalin of the Soviet Union, he occupied the current Azerbaijani territory, Armenia, and Nagorno-Karabakh, or Artsakh. And later, when there was a negotiation between the Soviet Union and the Turkish side, because Turkey is geopolitically very important for Russia and for the United States, and regardless of the previous enmity between them, similar to what Putin is trying to do now with Erdogan, Russia or the Soviet Union gifted the region of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh to Azerbaijan, knowing that Azerbaijan is a satellite state for Turkey, And in order to appease Turkey and in order to improve the trade and political and military relations between the both sides. So this region was taken from the Armenians, which 90% of it was lived by Armenian ethnic Armenians, and it was given to Azerbaijan. And what Azerbaijan did, it occupied the territory for 3 decades until the World War II. And after the end of World War II, we know there was a formation of the UN. And since this territory was occupied by Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan registered this territory on its name. So some people nowadays come and say, oh, Nagorno-Karabakh belongs to Azerbaijan because I searched on the internet and I found on Wikipedia that this area belongs to Azerbaijan. But these so-called journalists or activists or they don't search or they don't dig into the roots and the reasons why this area is an Azerbaijani. It resonates with Israel, for example, when Palestine was a mandate, was a British mandate. The Brits organized the trips for the Jewish people, who some of them were persecuted in the European countries, and tens of thousands of them arrived in Palestine. And it was the mandate gave them this territory, and later they registered these areas as an Israeli state after World War II, and it was the creation of Israel. So these 2 examples are almost similar in this regard.
I think what trips people up is that with Israel, it's pretty obvious these people were brought as foreigners from the end of the earth, basically, like Poland and Germany and the UK and Morocco, and put into the Levant. But the Azerbaijanis are a Turkic people, and they happen to already live in that area. So the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan, like the territorial claims, are not as easily disputed as when it comes to the Zionists.
I mean, the Turkic clans came to the region a few hundred years ago. It's not like they are original people in this area. They came from, they say, the countries behind the river or near Mongolia. Yes, the current Mongolia. So they are not genuine or residents of this area in this regard, you know.
Absolutely. There's a, we talked about Nagorno-Karabakh, but there's another region. I'm looking at the map. There's another region called Nakhchivan, which is supposed to be part of Azerbaijan, but it's actually disconnected from Azerbaijan. It's like on the west side of Armenia. How did this territory become Azerbaijan?
Actually, these areas were occupied by the Ottoman Empire, and when the Ottoman Empire lost or collapsed, the Soviet Union occupied that area, and it was the Soviet Union, Stalin, for geopolitical reasons, gave these territories to Azerbaijan, including Nagorno-Karabakh and Nakhichevan. Now, if you go to Nagorno-Karabakh, you will see, and Nakhichevan, you will see churches that date back, as I mentioned, hundreds of years ago. These are historical proofs. And what Azerbaijan, for example, did only a few days ago, they bombed one of these historical churches in Stepanakert, which is the capital of Artsakh, although the battles until this moment is on the southeastern part of Nagorno-Karabakh, and Stepanakert is in the middle of, it's the capital and it's the middle of Nagorno-Karabakh region. So the question is, why would Azerbaijan bomb a church? It's not only once, because if you bomb once, maybe you say the GPS, there was a wrong GPS or technology didn't work, or you try to make any claims. But when you bomb the church a few times at the same time, that means it's a deliberate attacking on any proofs or artifacts or architecture or anything that indicates the Armenian presence there before the Azerbaijanis, because This is also part of the Stalin plan that gave Nakhichevan and Nagorno-Karabakh to Azerbaijan. And it's an original Armenian territory. If you go to these territories, you will find churches, for example, that dates back hundreds of years ago. The first Armenian church was built in 301 in that area, and Armenia was the first Christian country that accepted Christianity as a religious of the state. So I'm not only referring to the churches, but the churches are proof for the Armenian architecture and the Armenian presence in that areas. So Armenians also consider Nakhichevan as part of historic Armenia. I mean, 1/4 of the current Turkey was populated by the Armenians. But what the Ottoman Empire did, like, for example, I will also try to link between these two examples. Nowadays, the Azerbaijani president Aliyev claims that if his forces occupy Nagorno-Karabakh, they will give, they're coming there to save the Armenians, and they will give them Azerbaijani passports, and they will treat them equally. Okay, this is the same narrative that the Turks or the Ottomans said about the Armenians in World War I, when the Ottoman Empire said, oh, the World War I is gonna erupt, and we have to save the Armenians from Eastern Anatolia and send them, resettle them in Bilad Sham, in the Levant. And what the Ottoman Empire did is they organized trips for hundreds of thousands of Armenians from Eastern Anatolia to Devizor, and 1.5 million people perished during this so-called trip. So there is no doubt that if Azerbaijan occupies Nagorno-Karabakh, there is going to be an ethnic cleansing. And when I say ethnic cleansing, I don't only mean massacring the people, because ethnic cleansing also means to deport the people from their territories. So if they deport tens of thousands of Armenians from this region to the current Armenian state or territory, that also means ethnic cleansing. And just see what's happening now in Nagorno-Karabakh. Yesterday, Azerbaijani forces captured 2 Armenian soldiers. And what they did with them, what have they done with them? Just like ISIS, what we used to see in Syria, or Iraq, this Spiker massacre, for example, and they just forced these soldiers on their knees and they shoot them. This is a war crime, and this is happening now. So anyone who comes and say, no, the Azerbaijanis are only trying to regain their territories, it's a BS for me. And history taught us that, I'm sorry, we paid a very huge price. 1.5 million people is not 1 or 2 or 3. It is an entire nation that was massacred on the hands of the Ottomans. And these people who are attacking Armenia now, or the Armenians, are the neo-Ottomans. The neo-Ottoman of Erdogan and his full and direct support of Azerbaijan, Azerbaijan as a client state or satellite state for Turkey, and the mercenaries of Erdogan who hold or carry a Syrian nationality or passports, but these people feel or say they are Erdoganists. So there is no doubt that these people are gonna commit horrendous crimes against Armenia. And what happened after World War II? The Armenians lived under occupation of Azerbaijan until 1988. In 1988, the Soviet Union was going to collapse, and the Armenians called for independence from Azerbaijan because Soviet Union was weak. So they used this period, exploited it. But Azerbaijan launched a military attack on the region in order to deprive the people from their self-determination rights. And what happened is the Armenians organized themselves in a very strong military forces. And I believe thousands of Armenians from all around the world, they volunteered in the Armenian Defense Forces or Resistance Forces, and they fought against the Azerbaijani army till 1994. 1993, 1994, and they regained the region of Nagorno-Karabakh or Artsakh, and they made a referendum, called for a referendum, and 99.8% of the people chose to be independent. Like Artsakh is nowadays a republic, but
an autonomous oblast.
yes, but the problem is, if you want nowadays to gain an international recognition, then you need the approval of the 5 permanent states of the UN Security Council, and we all know that the United States is going to veto. Maybe France nowadays votes for the Armenians because of its current conflict with Turkey. But in my humble opinion, both Russia and United States, they will veto this because they want to resolve this through diplomatic means between, especially Russia, between Azerbaijan and Armenia. But underground, I don't think the Armenians are going to surrender to the Azerbaijanis in the current situation.
I think the US definitely doesn't care about the plight of the Armenians compared to the plight of the Turks. But the Russia is kind of 50-50 in this.
But Maram, you know what's the difference? The difference is Armenians have the second most powerful lobby in the United States,
really?
after the Jewish lobbies. So they are capable of lobbying on the congressmen, on the Congress itself, because for many decades the Armenians are working, for example, to gain a recognition of the Armenian genocide in the United States, and ironically, the Jewish lobbies are working with the Azerbaijani side, especially AIPAC is working with the Azerbaijan and the Turkish side to foil attempts of the recognition of the Armenian genocide.
That's very interesting. How did the Armenians achieve a strong lobby? Like, that is something that we need to know.
Mm-hmm. Actually, the Armenians of Armenia are 3 million, but outside of Armenia, we are around 10-11 millions, and millions of them live in the United States. And what the Armenians do is they engage in business, and they are industrialists. So being an industrialist means that you also have connections with the industries in the United States, and we know that these industries are the ones who fund most of the politicians in the United States. So it's a complete network of connections between the Armenians and
Kim Kardashian.
Like, for example, Kim Kardashian, we shouldn't underestimate the influence of Kim Kardashian, Serge from the System of the Down, and there are a lot of famous people in the United States talking about Armenia. Although they weren't born in Armenia, some of them were born only in the United States. But when it comes to the Armenian matters, these people, Kim Kardashian donated $1 million to the Armenian cause. And yesterday, the amount of the donations from all over the world, from the diaspora to Armenia, is around $120 million in 3 weeks. That's a big amount of money, in my opinion.
And it's interesting because, like, I guess she also supported when the situation in Kasab was happening in Syria, when the terrorist groups attacked a region of Syria which is heavily populated by Armenians called Kasab. She actually tweeted about that. But in my experience here in Australia, unfortunately, the Armenian lobby it's very paused, which means that it's controlled by the Zionists. Like, they don't allow any Armenians here that unless they walk the line of the Zionist lobby. The Zionist lobby is still the most powerful thing here, and they all have to toe the line. And as a result, some Armenian journalists have attacked the pro-Syrian camp here. It's quite unfortunate. There's an attempt by the Zionist lobby to integrate Armenians and make them.
I'm very sorry to use these terms. But there are few Armenians also, not only in Australia but in Sweden, in Canada, and some of them also live in Turkey. And in my opinion, they are useful idiots for the empire. And what they do is, for example, in the Syrian case, they support the moderate rebels, quote unquote, right?
Yes,
and
exactly.
These moderate rebels are the ones now fighting also against Armenia. And what these people do nowadays, like they're supporting Armenia now, but when the case was in Syria, and especially also the Armenians of Aleppo suffered from this Free Syrian Army, they were cheering and supporting these groups.
I'm going to put the name of the journalist that did exactly that, the Australian journalist that did exactly that, the Armenian one, is going to go here.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Unfortunately, especially when some people, regardless of their nationality, they start to work in certain NGOs, and they are influenced by the indoctrination of these NGOs, but also the funding. So they feel belonging to these NGOs rather than their national identity. But when it comes to Armenia, it's very difficult for them to stand with these terrorists now, because they will be bashed by their people and they will be really called traitors, you know?
Well, of course, you're talking about the fact that the moderate Syrian rebels are now acting as Erdogan's mercenaries and being sent to not only Libya, but Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh to fight alongside the Azerbaijanis. What people need to understand is there's two things going on here. There's the Neo-Ottoman Empire, but there's also the Pan-Turkic empire, which is a different concept. And that would include, like, Uzbekistan, as far as I understand, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey, and they would like to connect all of these countries up to create a pan-Turkic alliance. But the problem is, what is in the way is Armenia. Armenia is the country that is in the way of them making that connection,
Yes.
which is why they want to squeeze it out.
Madam, I just want to mention one exclusive information. I was in a meeting with Uzbekistani delegation here in Germany. They are politicians from Uzbekistan, and I was listening to the conversation with German politicians. And what Uzbekistani delegation said, Turkey and Qatar are funding mosques and cultural centers in Uzbekistan. And we all know from the Syrian example,
Oh God.
these are just, as a brand, as a name, you can see it's a mosque or it's a cultural center, but the content, what's happening inside, is a cultural invasion of these countries in order to Turkify the people or make them loyal to Erdogan. I mean, just see nowadays what a lot of Pakistanis are doing. It's really absurd to see. Why would a lot of Pakistanis hate Armenians? There is no mutual history between them. There are no fights among them. It's just the influence of Erdogan. Erdogan nowadays is presenting himself as the caliph of the Muslims. And because of the very difficult history of the Muslims, especially in the last decades, and especially the American invasions, the regime change, topplings, insulting and humiliating the Muslims in this area, Muslims nowadays are thirsty for any leader that could hold their hands and say, I will make you strong again. And this role is being played perfectly by Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But Recep Tayyip Erdogan is a NATO member. This guy, he's doing the biggest service for the Americans and for the Israelis in the region.
And it's so hilarious to hear Erdogan posture that he's so against the United Arab Emirates for its new relationship with Israel, or it was always there under the belt. But at the same time, the Turkish government is selling Israel military, it's making the boots that the Israeli military wear. Like, the hypocrisy is mind-blowing. If you really want to, say something against them, then why don't you remove your recognition of the state of Israel? Do that, and then come and argue that you're pro-Palestinian. It's a joke.
A friend of mine said it's a big Hollywood movie. I will mention a few examples. One, Israel is selling deadly drones to Azerbaijan. Israel is selling deadly long-range missiles and sending the experts to Azerbaijan to train them to use against the Armenians. And we all know this is not only Azerbaijan's war, but also Turkish war. So as George Malbrono said from Le Figaro, Israel is fighting with Turkey and Azerbaijan against the Armenians because Azerbaijan is considered a territory, an advanced territory for spying on Iran.
Yep.
And
And not only that, they have a base there, an Israeli military base in Azerbaijan.
Yes, yes. And not only that, Azerbaijan supplies Israel of 40% of its oil and gas needs. And this pipeline goes through Georgia and Turkey.
Like the rhetoric
But-
that people.
But because everyone is talking nowadays about the Israeli-Turkish alliance in Azerbaijan war against Armenia, Erdogan comes out a few days ago and says, Jerusalem is our city because it was our city like a few hundred years ago. And what Ben Gantz, the defense minister of Israel, just the second day, he comes and says, Erdogan is destabilizing the region. I was like watching with the popcorn and guys, perfect timing for these statements. Perfect timing. It's like, it's not coordinated at all, you know?
It's the election year. Like he always comes up with crap like that in election year. Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, the interesting, I find it very strange that Azerbaijan is a Muslim Shiite country. I mean, it doesn't really matter because this is all real, just about politics and money. But there's 10 million Azeris inside Azerbaijan, but there's like 15 million inside Iran. And for Azerbaijan to allow Israel to attack Iran from its territory, as far as I know, like attacks inside Iran happened from Azerbaijan and the Caspian Sea. Like, does it not concern Azerbaijan that Iran could destabilize it, and vice versa? You know, that how does this even happen politically? It seems almost impossible to me.
Actually, if we talk militarily, Iran can wipe out Azerbaijan from the map if there is a war. There is no comparison between the both sides, but Iran is not going to do that in all cases. But I'm just saying militarily. So it is, I don't know if the calculations of Azerbaijan is perfect, but what they are doing is they are providing a perfect service for Israel to spy on Iran and to be an advanced territory for as a satellite on the Iranians. And also, Azerbaijan, a few decades ago, they were also supporting a separation aspirations of the Azerbaijanis in northern Iran to include them into Azerbaijan. Mm-hmm. So this game, Iran knows this game, but at the same time, Iran doesn't want to gain Azerbaijan as an enemy. And especially the Shia card is being played here. But what Azerbaijan did in the last decades, they played the card of pan-Turkism and not the pan-Shiaism here. Yes. So, and the people there are, the truth is that the people in Azerbaijan are mostly identified politically as secular. So they perceive the Islamic Shiaism of Iran as a genuine threat. And according to WikiLeaks, leaked document from the American embassy in Baku in 2009, it's clear that Azerbaijan perceives Iran as not only a security threat, but an existential threat. And therefore, Azerbaijan relies on Israel to back its political system, especially Aliyev, but also to buy weaponry, because the Americans, the French, the Russians, they sell Azerbaijan weaponry, but they make sure that the balance of power is always equal between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
They sell both sides the weapons.
Yes, but what Israel does, they don't care. They sell as much as weapon Azerbaijan wants. And in 2008, I believe, Aliyev said that they bought 4.85 billion weapons from Israel, and that's a very huge, big deal between the both sides.
As far as mostly drones, right?
Drones, technology,
Missiles as well.
yes, and long-range missiles. One of the missiles that fell on Stepanakert, on the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh, was made by Israel. And the president of Nagorno-Karabakh, he came out and he said this massacres against the Armenians is not only done by Azerbaijan, but the blame also lies on Israel as well.
Actually, I heard that the Armenians pulled their ambassador from Israel. Is that true?
The funny thing is, Armenia opened its embassy only a few months ago in Israel, and I'm sure now they know it was a wrong decision.
Yeah.
I just want to mention this example again. The Zionist or AIPAC and the Armenian lobbies in the United States. On the surface, you think that they're not, the relations are fine, but like it's like you have to see under the surface how the AIPAC and the Zionist lobby works against the Armenian interest with the Azerbaijanis, with the Turks, and especially in regards to the Armenian genocide recognition. I don't know what's the calculation of Israel. Maybe we can discuss it later in a different show, but they don't want the United States to recognize the Armenian genocide.
I think it has to do with Turkey and the relationship. They feel that Turkey is more important if we want to talk strategically. But I think there's a religious element to it because, of course, Israel has worked the hardest to destroy the Orthodox Church in Palestine, like by wiping it out and making sure that nobody even knows it exists. And the Armenian Orthodox Church as well as part of that, taking over Jerusalem. You know, what stands in the way? Like the Muslims don't have any political clout, but the Christians should. But the Orthodoxy is basically the Zionist lobby controls the Protestants and the Catholics, but they haven't been able to control the Orthodox Church, especially because of its history in Palestine. And I think that Armenia is something that they'd rather just not exist, but they have to deal with. But that's for a different story. Like, I'd like to get to now the fact that Turkey is bringing in, unfortunately, Syrian rebels into Azerbaijan. But I also know that there was some Syrian Armenian refugees that were moved back to Armenia because of the war. And some of them are in Nagorno-Karabakh. Would they also be fighting on the side of Armenia?
First of all, the number of the mercenaries are in thousands in Azerbaijan. At the first 2 weeks, there were 4,000 mercenaries from northern Syria traveled to Turkey, and from Turkey to Baku, and from Baku they were sent to the front line. They were told that they're going to guard Turkish military posts there. So they didn't know that they're going to fight. But what happened is they were sent from the airport to the front line. And even one of the buses that was carrying them to the front line, the first day they arrived, the bus was hit by a guided cornet, and around 80 of them died the first day when they arrived in Azerbaijan. And only a few days ago, Erdogan also sent instructions to Al-Hamze and all these FSA groups to mobilize 2,300 more mercenaries and send them to Azerbaijan. So just imagine, like, Azerbaijan has an army of 100,000 soldiers, and they're relying on these mercenaries now, maybe 6,000 or 600 and 500 mercenaries. But these people, these mercenaries have an expertise in the last years, and they have a strong doctrine, which is a terrorist doctrine. They're very similar to Al-Qaeda, and they think the Armenians are Christians, so they're infidels, so they have to kill them. This is how they brainwash these people.
But it's interesting, they're fighting the Armenian Christians, but they're fighting alongside Shia that are secular.
Yes.
And those are they were in Syria. They were killing both the Shia and the secular people, and now they're fighting alongside them. So
by the way, there are many conversations between these militants. For example, one sends a WhatsApp voice message to another, and that another sends to someone else, and these voice recordings are leaked, and they're really shocked. when they arrived in Azerbaijan to find out that they're fighting with the Shias, and they say this doesn't suit us. Shias are our enemies more than the Jews and the Christians. This is what they say. But the smell of the money, the dollars, it seems that stronger than anything else. But let me just say one thing. This Free Syrian Army, they were funded, support, trained by the CIA under Clinton and Obama administration. So they are responsible. They are responsible for this genocide now against the Armenians. Number one. Number two, one of the groups that is sending mercenaries to Azerbaijan is called Sultan Murad Group, and this group was directly supported by the Netherlands, by Holland, with little, not non-little, but little, I hope I'm pronouncing it well, so deadly support by the Netherlands. So now the Armenians in Europe, they're shocked that the European Union is not acting or doing anything. I mean, sorry, these countries were supporting the terrorists, the governments, let's say, the same terrorists were slaughtering the Armenians and other communities in Syria. So of course it's not shocking. But what Turkey tries to balance this, and they, hey, but the PKK, they fight with the Armenians. This is BS. The number of PKK fighters in Nagorno-Karabakh is zero. Yes, but the number of Armenian diaspora fighters, I think there are tens of them. Some of them are my friends that I know them well, and we studied together, we were colleagues. But this is very, very important. They all hold Armenian nationality. They have Armenian passports. It's not like they're coming from somewhere and they don't know what Armenia is and they're fighting with Armenia, like the mercenaries, and they're not fighting for money. They're fighting for the nation. There's a huge difference.
I guess Armenia is not backing down, because I think Russia is trying to make Armenia back down. Would you say that that's true?
This is very, it's difficult to make an assessment on it, but I think what Russia is doing, and maybe I'm wrong, is practicing pressure on the current Prime Minister of Armenia. The current Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, came after a so-called revolution. But if we check how he came to power, in my opinion, he was backed by Soros groups and all these color revolution people. Like, this doesn't mean that Armenia should lose its territory because its prime minister maybe came through these Soros groups, because this has nothing to do with him. But what Russia is trying to do is, one, to force Nikol Pashinyan to make big compromises in the internal affairs, especially that he opened the country for the Soros NGOs. And we all know that these NGOs are anti-Russian, and they're working to make the Armenian people have an anti-Russian stances. So in my opinion, if Nikol Pashinyan abandons his support for these groups, Putin will weigh in and support him. But as long as Pashinyan, we are talking about now internal politics, but as long as Pashinyan gives the opportunity for this, I call them like, they're just, they try to indoctrinate the people to abandon their national identity and hold like micro identities, or like, the priority of Armenia is now to liberate its territory, huh? But they change their priorities from this important matter into less important matters. For example, LGBT rights. LGBT rights are very, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, it's very, very important for the LGBT community to feel safe and their rights to be protected. But it doesn't come on the top of the list. When you are in an existential war against Turkey and Azerbaijan, and you come and talking to me about LGBT rights, excuse me, your life is more important than, like, the life of the majority of the people is more important than only addressing this one particular issue. So Putin, he will not mind certain Azerbaijani advancement in Nagorno-Karabakh if Pashinyan doesn't back out from his internal policies. But if he backs off in his internal policies, I think Putin will weigh in and he will intervene and stop the war and negotiations and truce.
This neoliberalism is the way that the US uses to control nations, essentially.
And this is, but what happened is important now because this so-called revolution happened only 2 years ago, and the Armenians thought that they have a democratic system now, and that the EU will support Armenia, and that the United States will support Armenia. But what happened is the contrary during this war, and I think they received a slap on their face, and they now awake, and they know that no one can save the Armenians except the Russians. The Armenians can save themselves.
Belarus. Sorry.
Yes, the Armenians can save themselves, and the Russians can save themselves. They have to play clever because they're in Southern Caucasus. Armenia is not in Western Germany or Western France, and it's not in Cuba, and it's not in Canada. So geopolitically speaking, Armenians should have good relationship with the EU, with the United States, trade relations, do whatever you want. But geopolitically speaking, militarily speaking, Armenians should be with Russia because Armenia is a small country, and it's between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Both are hostile, and it doesn't have any seaport. Armenia is like an island between Turkey and Azerbaijan. They can't access. If Armenia had a territory in Baku, it was on the Caspian Sea, and you don't need this Russian protection. You are able to go out and explore by yourself, and you have oil and gas, but you don't have all this. Your economy is based on services until this moment, and you are highly dependent in your security on Russia.
The thing is that what the Americans do is that they seduce nations with rapprochement. They say, we don't have to be enemies, you can be neutral. And like with Gaddafi, they told him, give up your weapons, we won't attack you. And that essentially the reason why they do that is to devalue them in the eyes of Russia. The same is happening with Belarus. Like 2 years ago, there was some rapprochement between the West and the Belarusian president, and he moved away from Russia and closer to the West. Not all the way, not enough for them to be happy, of course. And now there is a color revolution going on in Belarus because he's gone back to Russia now because basically their game is to pretend that they're going to be nice to you and they're going to be friends with you, but they're just doing it to make it that you don't have any friends anymore.
But I want to make a comment here, my friend. This is very important. If you go to Armenia now and ask the people if you have a choice to integrate economically, politically, socially with Russia and integrate with the European Union, most of them, they will choose the European Union. Why? Because the European Union and the United States, their marketing power is very strong, and it's more attractive than the Russians, especially that the Russians had not so nice history as the Soviet Union with the Armenians. Armenia remained very underdeveloped under the Soviet Union. And two, what Russia is presenting nowadays on a cultural level, any empire in the world, it has pillars: politics, military, and culture. What is Russia presenting nowadays in culture-wise? Like, why there is this so-called human rights, democracy, blah blah blah, but Russia, what is Russia is doing? Only countering this cultural project of the West without presenting its own project. So nowadays, culture, songs, arts, movies, cinemas, everything is coming from the West. So of course the people will be biased towards the West, and they think this is how life looks like or their life will look like. But the truth is, if Armenia joins the European Union, which is impossible, but let's suppose, it will be like Greece.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It would be like Greece.
they will be a failed state under strong economic control of Germany and France, who will give Armenia money in exchange for political concessions. Period.
You know, you bring up Greece, and so I want to talk about basically the bigger picture. We talked about Armenia and Azerbaijan and Iran and Turkey, but let's make it even bigger than that. Um, I don't know if you're aware, but there was this Rand Corporation paper. Okay, so it's called Overextending Russia. So how do they overextend Russia? Number one, provide lethal aid to Ukraine. Second, increase support of the Syrian rebels. Then promote regime change in Belarus. Then exploit tensions in the South Caucasus. So that's Armenia and Azerbaijan. So basically what they're trying to do is make so much pressure on Russia that it's overextending itself with too many conflicts around it.
Actually, just 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, it was Reuters or The Guardians. They published detailed statistics of what Azerbaijan or the Turkish export of weaponry to Azerbaijan only a few weeks before this conflict. There is a huge increase in the sale of weaponry to Azerbaijan only a few weeks before this conflict. So it means that there was a preparation for this conflict. But also underground, the attack, if you just check the map of the fight now, we can see on this live view map thing in the Caucasus, it's Azerbaijan advancing inside the Nagorno-Karabakh territory. It's not the other way around. It's the Azerbaijan who attacked on the 27th of September. It was a full-scale war by the Azerbaijanis against the region of Nagorno-Karabakh. But if we want to go back a little bit to the Russian case, my problem is we always blame the others. The others are the Americans and the Europeans. But this side, they have empire project. Of course, they will expand. They will try to increase their influence here and there. But what are we doing to protect ourselves? Or by one, to have our independent countries in a way that we are not dependent on any outside force. And two, what is Russia is doing to present a different example or an attractive example, better example. It is very important nowadays in a globe, huh?
Enough.
Not enough, not enough. What Russia needs is to attract the youngsters. Like if you go nowadays in Europe and see the right-wing groups, for example, right-wing groups are mostly pro-Russia, okay? And they're accused of being taking funds from Russia, which is, I don't think it's true, but there is some sort of connection between the right-wing groups and Russia. But most of the voters of the right-wing groups in Europe, most of them are elderly. When people retire and they see, when you're a German and you're retired and you're getting 300, 400 euros per month as a rent salary from the government, and when you see a refugee comes and takes 1,000 euro per month, then you will vote for the right-wing group. And most of them are the old people. But if Russia wants to succeed and have a different example, they need the youngsters. And nowadays, the youngsters are very much influenced by the liberal media, the liberal this media industry, the movies and documentaries and everything. You will find a hard time nowadays in Berlin. I myself, I'm a feminist, but what's the definition of a feminist nowadays? It is very different. If you ask someone in Berlin, if she says I'm a feminist, or she considers herself as a radical feminist, it's very difficult to hold a conversation with her. Like it's as if she hates men,
Yes.
no more promoting for equal rights, you know?
Yeah.
So it's all coming from the West. But
Yes.
what's the example of Russia to attract the other youngsters who are not really impressed by this trend of neoliberalism? I don't see an alternative.
our generation, like my generation, your generation, the millennial generation, has been engineered, and the next generation after us, the Z, have been engineered to an even higher level with the ideology of liberalism. So the propaganda is so deep that, of course, the majority of us are not going to be able to withstand it. But there is a percentage of uh, of them that reject it so strongly that they're polarized, which is, of course, an opportunity. But yeah, with like Russia, it's not just the ideology that they lack, but also military support. There's not that, like, for Syria, they have been instrumental to help against the terrorist groups. However, when it comes to Israel, where's the air defense? Where they should destroy the Russian plane and killed tens of Russians, but nothing's changed. So unfortunately, yeah, like that is one of the things that is the Americans rely on, is that how can they seduce Belarus by telling Belarus, like, Russia's not going to save you. You better save yourself by siding with us. So yeah, I want to agree with you on that. I want to talk about also going back into our region, the Kurds, like, because Ararat mountain is currently under Turkey, but I know that it has a historical religious uh, importance to Armenia, because apparently Noah, or Nuh, his boat was supposed to have landed on Ararat mountain. So it's like significant to the Bible, it's insignificant to Armenian history. But actually, the Kurds claim Ararat mountain as Kurdish, as well as other parts of what would have been historically Armenia. Do you have any comment about that?
Look, I don't want to really provoke my Kurdish friends because I have many of them, but I tell them this all the time. Like let's say, some Kurds, the only thing that they didn't say is that Adam and Eve were Kurdish. It's like they always like everything is Kurdish. I make these jokes with them, but in my humble opinion, the Kurdish people are, if they do their political and geopolitical calculations well, and they see now what's happening in Armenia, and that the United States, the EU will never protect you, and they prioritize their security over any thefting or robbing our oil in Syria, for example. They should find themselves aligned with Syria. They should find themselves aligned with the Syrian government, with the allies of the Syrian government. They are the only ones who are able to solve their issue in the eastern side of Euphrates in a peaceful way, and they are win-win solutions. Kurds should forget about having a state in.
And finally, like, at the current situation, is Azerbaijan occupying a part of Nagorno-Karabakh at the moment?
Yes.
And is Armenia trying to push them back out? Will the Russians negotiate for the Azeris to pull back? Do you think they will pull back? Do you think that there will be a ceasefire with the new regions, like the new lines?
Everything is possible. Everything is possible in the current situation, but the Azerbaijani forces occupy some parts of Nagorno-Karabakh, in southeastern part of Nagorno-Karabakh. I think the name of the area is Jibril or something, and they are on the peripheries of Hadrut now. They couldn't occupy the city yet, but they're trying it hard. We don't know how the amount of death among the Azerbaijani army is very, very huge. It's over 5,000 deaths we're talking about 3 weeks of fighting. The Armenian side suffered around 600 deaths till the moment, and all the names are documented, but the Azerbaijani side is not declaring the names of their deaths among their ranks. The information is coming from the Ministry of Defense of Artsakh, and they're providing the evidence and pictures and the videos of the deaths of Azerbaijani soldiers. it's very unfortunate that Aliyev is sending his people into it's imminent death. And the Armenians, obviously, they're very well trained and they're using the coordinates in a very well manner. And it's a very difficult geography. It's all mountainous areas. You know that Syria in the last 3-4 years was trying to advance in Kabani in northern Latakia. And even with the Russian heavy bombing, it was difficult for them to advance. So this is why Syria didn't launch a ground offensive there, because they will lose hundreds of soldiers. It's very difficult to fight there. But the Azerbaijani side is not making any such calculations. They're just sending hundreds of soldiers every day into the front line. And the Armenian side, they say that we are retreating tactically from some areas because we can oversee these areas and we can kill the soldiers of the Azerbaijan and then push them back into their land.
It seems that it escalated really quickly, and I think that I don't even blame the Azeris that much, in spite of their deep-rooted ties to Israel. I really blame Turkey the most.
Yes, too.
So I think we gave people a really deep understanding of what's happening. Thanks to your knowledge, and thank you for coming on. Is there anything more you want to say, or would you like, how can people follow you? What are your Twitter, your YouTube, your Patreon, everything?
First of all, I would like to thank you because you dedicated your time and your audiences to me, also to speak to them. My YouTube channel is Syrian Analysis. They can find it on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I will send you the links. You can also put them in the comments or in the description. Also the Patreon, because I actually do like a part-time job on YouTube. So as much as I gain more dollars per month or more money, then I could become more independent, because independent journalism is very essential for me, for you, for the people. We don't want to take instructions from anyone. That's why I chose to leave my journalistic work in any institution and decided to build my own YouTube channel, my own platform, and rely on the people that can support with very small pennies. But when a lot of people support you, then you're independent and you say what you want to say and what you believe in. That's very key in journalism.
That's how my philosophy is as well. And I prefer a lot of people with $1 rather than one person with $50, for example.
Yes,
because I don't want to burden anyone. And at the same time, it helps me feel like
buy us a coffee per month. Consider it just one coffee per month. $1 for Mimi and $1 for me. We're not begging. We're just creating a platform, strong platform, that we can be influential and we can reach to tens of thousands. And you know well that YouTube, you can reach to billions of people. We can't reach to the billions now, but we are able to compete with the mainstream media. And that is why they are smearing me and smearing Maram. They are trying to distort our image and try to portray us as some sort of a conspiracy theorist. And when we were saying that the Free Syrian Army is a Turkish intelligence construction on the CIA, they were saying us, oh, he is a conspiracy theorist, she is a conspiracy theorist. And now they call them mercenaries, when we were calling them mercenaries from 2011. We were right and they were wrong. They were wrong because they were taking their instructions from their governments and from the people who fund them. That's the difference.
But yeah, I always tell people, think of me like a beggar in the street that you walk past every month on your way to work and fling me a dollar. But thank you so much, and please, guys, follow Kevork. He does excellent work. I think better work than me. And
you're also an inspiration for me. You're older than me on YouTube. Remember?
Oh yeah, that's true. I've been going for too long and not much to show for it. But thanks so much, and I hope you come again. We'll talk about serious stuff next time.
Thank you so much.
Since this interview, Russian peacekeepers have entered Nagorno-Karabakh, otherwise known as Artsakh, and the people of Armenia have called on that prime minister that was brought in by a George Soros coup to step down. The ceasefire that Russia negotiated has Azerbaijan controlling regions of Nagorno-Karabakh. But as we saw with the ceasefires that Russia negotiated in Syria, this doesn't mean things are over.